Start.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. The Commission on Equitable Housing Development meeting has now commenced. It is May 4th at 4 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually due to COVID-19 to allow for social distancing and to protect the public health. As we continue our efforts in meeting remotely, we ask all commissioners and guests to mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number, to unmute to speak, dial *6 on your phone. Also, prior to speaking, please announce who you are to identify yourself. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We ask that you only use the chat function to request to speak or to announce that you are leaving the meeting so we can track quorum. Also, in order to comply with open state meeting laws, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio, not by using the chat function. So we'll go ahead and do roll call. Sharia Jimenez.
Here.
Hey, Shay. Jim Topol, I'm here. Jay Young.
Here.
Mindy Bernstein.
Here.
Lori Mazurbo.
Here.
Ken Brianna Washington. I don't think Ken Brianna's here with us yet. Maggie Amato Tejas.
Here.
Wendy Asher. Look like Wendy's not here yet. Marianne Bierling. Not here yet. Mark Clark.
Present.
Vicky Cusino.
Here.
And then our ex officio members, Liz Morales. Is Liz or Ann going to be joining us today, Nesto?
No, I will be representing HCD.
Corin Manning. Hey, Corin, I couldn't hear you, but you're here. I don't think your microphone's working. Marcos Ismail.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And Betty Villegas. Betty's not here either.
And Jim, you also have we have also a new commissioner.
Is that an agenda item? I didn't see that.
No, we got it. I didn't get it on the agenda, but I did message you that Tisha Tallman is now a commissioner.
Hi, Tisha. How are you?
Hi, Jim. I'm very well, thank you.
Welcome to the commission.
Thank you.
We have 2 new commission members, correct?
Yes, there are 2 new commissioners. Tisha is on with us today. Ray Wench is unable to make it. Ray also has to complete paperwork and will be with us next month.
Okay. Well, Tisha, do you mind just introducing yourself real quick to the group?
Sure. My name is Tisha Tallman, and I am Daytime Job CEO of the Primavera Foundation. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and I look forward to serving.
So you took over for Betty, huh? Or no, not Betty. You took over for Peggy.
That's correct.
Yes. Well, those are some big shoes to fill. Okay. So our second agenda item is the review and the adoption of the April 13 meeting minutes. Those minutes were posted on our website. Does anybody have any corrections? I looked at them. They were very detailed. I thought they looked good. Okay, well, if there are no objections, then the meeting minutes are approved. Third agenda item is the call to the audience. This is a time when any member of the public may address the Commission on Equitable Housing and Development. Due to time constraints, the total time allocated for this is 15 minutes. Individuals are allowed 3 minutes each. Due to open meeting laws, commission members cannot discuss topics that are not on the agenda. Items brought up by the public may be considered as an agenda item for future meetings. So it looks like we have Victoria.
Bear
Victoria,
bear with me a moment, trying to have some technical difficulties here.
yeah, Ken Brianna's with us too, it looks like.
Right, I can't get her in as a panelist. Okay, Victoria, I believe you can, your mic is open.
Okay, yeah, I've been working, like I said, I have the list of the only apartments that don't require 2.5 income. And I was hoping that you guys might make progress on that formula of being able to identify your key audience of how many people have Social Security and are not making 16 to 1800, so therefore cannot apply to any of these so-called affordable housing because they still require 2.5 times the income, and who has the ability to help them get like first month's deposit. Is there a community warehouse? Is there a streamlined way of knowing what resources are available? Have you mapped out various kinds of resources? And who is the population you're trying to serve? What is the data behind that population? And then how can you make your goals objective to that? Because if you just rely on the funding that you're trying to get in grants, loans, all this kind of stuff, that's not going to get you there. And what are you doing for immediate housing for alternative shelter needs? What have you done to look at national, like the Corporation of Supportive Housing, the FUSE program? There's a few national programs I have on my board. And have you looked at what other people are doing in other cities? And how do you want to deal with that population to make sure that it's not affecting the infrastructure, the dirtiness of the city? What buildings are you not using? So it's more than just like emergency protocol. It could be, what are other strategies? Can you do a state of an emergency? Can you get people into shelter? I mean, what are the options that you have and have not looked at across the board of the United States? So you don't end up like Oakland, please. That's just my hope. That's all I have to say. I'm working. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria. As always, we appreciate your comments. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Don't see any of their hands, Jen.
Okay. So let's see, we've got a couple of agenda items here today. Just the continued discussion from our last meeting on our goals and priorities. And this has impossible action on requesting a commission consultant. Jay, do you want to kick this off?
Let's see, what's the agenda item, Jim? I'm sorry.
It's the continuation from our discussion last time of our goals and priorities and kind of what we should be trying to do here for the next, I'd say, 2 years.
Sure, I can kick it off. And we talked a good deal about this in our housing desegregation subcommittee that we just had today. But I think the idea is that we should come together again as a commission to refocus on what our vision is and what we are trying to accomplish. And I think, again, we mentioned this in our subcommittee meeting today, but we think that it would be a great idea to have someone help facilitate that conversation like we had in the beginning of the full commission when we had the facilitated conversations to kind of get us off the ground. So that's kind of the start, I guess. I don't know if there's something else you'd like me to do, Jim, to kick it off.
Are you thinking the exact same person or somebody similar?
I mean, again, it's just open for commission, so I don't necessarily have a preference, but I do, I think the person who helped us in the beginning did a pretty good job. But I think it might also be useful to, and this is just my opinion, have somebody local who kind of has an idea about what we're trying to do and is connected to Tucson.
Yeah, I think that was potentially the one, I think drawback of the, I don't remember the individual's name we had before, but does anybody have a recommendation or a thought on who we could reach out to? Because I agree, I think, we've been meeting now for 3 years. And I think we've made some good progress. We've made recommendations to mayor and council on things that the city can do to help incentivize more affordable housing going forward. And they've accepted those recommendations. And I think, so there's, how are we gonna be involved in terms of the implementation of those is, I think, one question, but then, what next? And I think that's kind of where we're struggling right now. And so I guess I'd like, does anybody have a recommendation on who could help be a facilitator to kind of work through the next 2 years of goals? Mindy?
Thank you. I'm kind of feeling having a facilitator. I think that for me, I'm seeing a clear path for the commission to moving forward on the equitable, the segregation and protecting neighborhoods. And I came on the commission specifically because of the housing first component. And I think that, for me, just kind of staying on a journey with the two subcommittees would be enough. And putting pressure on mayor and council to think outside the box. Like, let's look at some of the national. Anyway, I don't have anybody to recommend. I don't think we need it, but I will go along happily with what other people need. And sorry. Lower hand, mute.
Shay?
Yeah, I was gonna recommend maybe the Center for Community Dialogue. Is that still a thing here in Tucson? I feel like they probably have some really great trained facilitators who could help us. I don't know. That would be I'm thinking people like that who kind of focus specifically on group dynamics and talking through issues, and I think they could be good. Similar to Mindy, I just keep seeing all this out there about, yeah, it's just tough out there right now. I don't think we've seen this level of houselessness in a long time in the community, and I feel like the policies that we have in place regarding police, just all the policies in place are just, it's just it's a conflict. It's just a constant conflict between neighborhoods, houseless communities, parks, facilities, where do people go? It's just, I think that there's a lot of larger policies in place that are putting all those communities in conflict. So, I don't know what we can work on outside of, the other initiatives, the prosperity initiative. And I know there's other initiatives out there, but, I wasn't quite sure. And that was the group that came in and talked to us, right? With, but they've already come and talked to us before, correct? Yeah. The issues they were working on also seemed very broad, and I was having a hard time also kind of bringing those down to actionable policy recommendations. So, you know, I don't know, maybe those are some of the things that are kind of immediate for me in terms of things that are on my mind that I would like us to be working on maybe in the next few years.
Key.
Oh yeah, Shay, did you mean the Center for Community Dialogue that was part of our family services?
Yes.
I think it's
Is it done?
closed as of
Oh.
last year was the last that I heard.
Oh, yeah, I was curious.
So it
Yeah.
isn't at our family anymore because that is where I worked for all those years, but they are trying to do independent work on their own outside of our family. And there is somebody that we could contact. I just got an email recently from them asking to be a part of a listening session.
Lori, is there somebody you would recommend that we could try to engage?
Yeah, I have the email of the woman who was one of the leaders for the Center Community Dialogue that we could reach out to. Sure.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind doing that, and then maybe the two of us could try to set up a call or a, you know, kind of an offline discussion with them to just to, you know, set expectations and understand what's going to be required.
Okay.
Okay, Jay?
Yeah, so a couple of comments. One, in terms of facilitators, I've worked with Bryn Jones a number of times over the years. I think she's a good facilitator and is very much connected to Tucson and discussion around equity in general. So just putting her name out there. I guess the other thing, you know, I just wanted to touch on again, I think this is kind of what we were talking about today in our subcommittee meeting, but you know, I think that we as a commission really need to get on the same page about what is our vision for an equitable Tucson. What does that actually look like? I don't think that that I am clear if we have that as a commission. I don't think that's clear to me. You know, what would an equitable Tucson look like in 20 years if we, you know, had a magic wand, or 5 years or whatever, and then thinking about a framework to get there. You know, that to me is really job one, and was what we were, you know, going to bring forward today as the as our subcommittee. Another thing that came up for us as well is, you know, again, just a real, and Shay, I think you were touching on this a little bit, but just a real lack of community voice in our meetings and our discussion. You know, I think it's critical to understand. I mean, we can understand that from a big picture vision, you know, looking at policy and whatnot, but you know, Tucson is Tucson, and I think that if we don't really have the community voice at least somewhat a part of this discussion, I think I just don't know how well we can really formulate that vision. Trying to think, I think there was another thought on my mind. But anyway, I guess that's kind of where we landed today. And, you know, I think that, you know, having a facilitator help us with that is important. Oh, the other thing I was gonna mention is, you know, and what we were focusing on today was, you know, we have an equity report that students from ASU produced for us, and that really has gotten nowhere. You know, and I don't know why that is exactly, if we just haven't framed it right or haven't had the time, but I feel like we've got this springboard to move forward with a lot of these things, and we just really haven't done anything with it. I don't think that study is kind of the end all and be all, but I think the idea is that, you know, it provides some ideas about from what other cities are doing in this realm, and, you know, how to measure equity and potentially how we can take some strides as well. So we really wanted to bring forward, you know, centering that study as the kind of center of gravity for us moving forward to look at vision, look at framework, see what other places are doing. One thing we didn't talk about, but I mean, I think another thing we could do is bring in some experts from around the country who have an idea about, you know, what equity looks like, what is housing equity, mean and how do we get there? And then the last point I want to raise as well that we talked about is, you know, we have put forth the good recommendations, I think, about affordable housing, but where's that landed? I mean, what's the city council doing? Are they, you know, going to dialogue with us or kind of let us know if that landed or kind of where that's going? And then, you know, we also really discussed, you know, if we're talking about, you know, measuring equity and this framework, like we need to have an honest discussion about what the city is really capable of doing and willing to do. You know, if we're asking HCD, for instance, to, you know, measure equity in a different way and, you know, whatever the case may be, you know, if they don't have the capacity to do that, that's fine. But I think we need to know that. And if that's not going to be possible, how can we support them to do that work? I mean, should we be looking for grant funding? To me, that seems like another piece of the puzzle that I don't think we've discussed honestly, is like, what if we move forward as a commission, you know, is the city going to, you know, take this and move it forward? Is that capacity even there? So anyway, those were a couple of things that we talked about and wanted to bring forward as the housing desegregation subcommittee, you know, really having the center of gravity moving forward be that equity study, because it really does kind of ground us, I think, in a lot of the things that we're talking about and pieces that we can pull out and move forward. So anyway, I was going to talk more about that report out, but now seemed like a good time. So anyway, that's where we got to today.
Thank you, Jay. Hey, Nesto, can we make a note to put that study as an agenda item on our next meeting?
Sure, of course.
Okay, thanks. I do agree that slipped through the cracks. And I also agree with you, Jay, about, you know, we need to figure out how we're going to follow up with the city on the things that have been agreed upon. Otherwise, it's just lip service, right? So we want to, you know, if they passed all the recommendations unanimously, but if it doesn't actually get enacted, then what's the point? So, okay, Tisha.
Yeah, thank you. And I too have looked at the equity study, and I think that, you know, it's been on the agenda a couple of different times over the last month, but I do think it's also loaded with some amazing information as a stepping off point. But if I may, a few things I've heard here, and I love strategy and I've worked in equity for most of my adult life. But I feel like an education component prior to bringing in a consultant for a strategic planning portion. So if we could do the pre-education, which is, you know, looking at the equity study, figuring what we want to take out of that, then bringing in some national scholars perhaps, or individuals who are experts on this field to help us get a broader context in which Tucson could potentially operate. I do have a suggestion on that. I worked for John Powell, small j, small p. He's in the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley. I'm actually going to be bringing him in here for our 40th anniversary for one of our events, and we could maybe piggyback off of that if that would assist with the cost in any way, if there was a cost associated with it for the commission. But he is a housing and housing policy expert in regards to looking strictly through an equity lens, and he's worked with various foundations and various organizations throughout the world on housing policy and equity. And then, you know, all the other, you know, potential things that we could do to educate us, whether it's public forums, whether it's lived expertise, lived experience, advisory focus groups. You know, there are a number of things we can do on the educational front that involves community and involves our own educational learning outside of, you know, whether it's qualitative, quantitative data, that would all go into the pre-strategic planning. And then if we could bring in a strategic planner to then assist us in parsing out the capacity piece, Jay. So, you know, the strategic person could help us look through that lens of what we might want to achieve up against the capacity of the city, the systems, the structures, the people, the process, the systems. So that's just kind of a broader thought maybe of how we can look at what we might want to do or what we might want to frame for the next couple of years.
Okay, so Shay.
Oh yeah, thank you, Trisha. That was really helpful. I really like the way you laid it out right now. Yeah, I also I would love for the next meeting for us to dive into that report. And Jay, I was just curious if off the top of your head, was there anything specific that you think we can move on that came out of that directly that came out of that document?
Move on directly. That is a very good question.
I mean, I'm sorry, I guess I just mean like, was there any sort of already policy recommendations in there or any sort of action items in there that were already outlined?
This may or may not answer your question. I mean, to me, the biggest takeaway is that you can measure equity. We're not doing it. And in order to improve equity, you got to start measuring it somehow. And there are some examples of how to do that. So that to me has always been the thing that I keep talking about that I think is critical. I haven't looked at the study in a minute, so I don't know if there's anything that we can like just pull out and implement, but that's a good reason for us to jump into it and see what we can pull out of there.
Do you think that I know that the group that did it is no longer in class, but is there anybody you think that would be willing to kind of present to the commission, to one of the students who helped put it together?
I could check. I mean, based on what the students did at the end of the semester, I mean, you know, I attended a presentation and it was fine, but I guess my feeling is that, you know, if we review it ourselves, I think that, you know, we can probably get together and talk about it, but I'm perfectly willing to check and see if any of those students are still around and see, you know, if somebody could come in and present. I'd be happy to do that.
Sorry, guys, I need to step out for just 1 second. I'm sorry. Jay, do you mind running for just a few minutes here?
Sure. Mindy, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Jay, is there a way to send a link to that report study?
I could definitely do that. Is it not on our on the commission's website?
Oh, is it? Okay.
It
I
is.
did- Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Tisha. Did you have a comment as well?
No, it is. It's been on the agenda a few times.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or discussion on this topic? Come on, y'all, give me something until Jim gets back at least.
Well,
Go ahead, Mindy.
I think we were brought together as a commission tasked with guiding or providing recommendations to the mayor and council. That I remember our facilitator saying that this is a national issue, not just Tucson, and that we are, as we look at Tucson, we're also looking at a whole national kind of crisis. And what I have to say is, what I feel is our willingness to think way out of the box. And unless we're willing to or able to think outside that box and communicate that to mayor and council, we'll end up in the same kind of place that we are. For instance, now that you asked, I think that we need to set some ordinances like other cities of zero growth. Not allowing people that are private wealth managers to buy up homes and then rent them for ridiculous amounts of money, shrinking our affordable housing. I think those are, part of what we can tell mayor and council, that let's take some hard stances that would be very unpopular, that are the only solution to this ongoing issue. So thank you for listening to that small rant. I have a lot more kind of pent up, and I will try to put it into perspective before I speak again. Thanks.
Thanks, Mindy. Take it away, Jim.
All right, sorry about that. My daughter got in a little fender bender. So anyways, where are we? Is Joe?
Joe Adino has his hand up.
Okay, yeah, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I'm sure all hope your daughter's okay, Jim.
She's fine.
Good. So I think moving forward with measuring equity, what we looked at wasn't a study on equity, it was about measuring equity, right? That's what the ASU study is, not about how much equity Tucson has relative to other places. It was about the measurement of equity. And I think it's fine to move forward and say, okay, we're going to have to find our metrics and what's Seattle doing, what's Austin doing, how can we copy what they're doing well and improve on what they're not. I think that's great. But I think there are also other things that in the meantime, we've all kind of talked about as far as moving forward that we can kind of agree contribute to equity. And we've had pretty limited conversations about eviction prevention and tenant protection and those kind of things. We had Joanna Carr come to the Housing First Subcommittee and present on those, and we haven't really moved on any of that. I'm going to bring up kind of some other things. I know that somebody from Ward 3 showed up here, one of the people who works there, and talked about their constituents' concerns, and that investor-owned housing was a concern of that. And I was, again, really disappointed that that was laughed off in a meeting of the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. That the contention was, well, we can't just ban it. There's interstate commerce. We can't do anything about that. And that suggestion was effectively ridiculed. Now, even if you can't do that, even if our options are limited in that sense, I like to come back to how communities can control more of their housing, whether it be, I know Maggie's here, community land trusts, whether it be housing co-ops. And I always, bring up, I know that funding is, of course, an issue with all these things, but, Tucson's Faircloth number is 1,926 public housing units, and we're 400 units below that. So I think if there's a way to get different funding for different things, there are opportunities to help us control more of our housing and not have everything as market reliant as it has been for the last 50 years increasingly, and that's got us into this situation. Thanks.
Hey, Joe, I'm trying to rack my brains in terms of what you were talking about, the Affordable Housing Subcommittee.
I believe that was affordable housing. CJ from Ward 3 came here and presented a few things, and one of them was, hey, we see a lot of investors buying up things, and what I heard in the subsequent meeting when CJ was not there was, well, we can't stop out-of-state investors. That's interstate commerce. We can't do anything about that. And the next step wasn't taken to say, okay, we can't ban out-of-state investors, but how do we talk about getting housing under the control of our communities and not under the hands of people who are commodifying and financializing our housing, which is, pretty universally at this point acknowledged to be a big part of a problem, even to the point the UCLA Luskin Institute for Inequality had a great seminar a couple months ago, and it was with the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Adequate Housing, as well as his two predecessors in that position. And some advocates from the ACLU, some advocacy organizations in LA. And they talked about the right to housing and financialization and the commodification of housing and how that is a big issue in our problems. And we never took that next step to say, okay, how can we talk about fighting that at a level maybe in Tucson? How can we advocate at the state level for that? And if we've got, if we get people who are talking about federal legislation, then how do we get, how do we keep housing funding at the federal level? How do we increase that? How do we push for better legislation as a city that could help us? Because it's certainly ineffective. It's tough for me to do it. It's tough for an individual citizen to do it. It's tough for the commission to do it. But maybe if the city, can have more power there, I think that's something that's worth discussing, maybe in this commission.
Okay, thank you for that. So we've got two suggestions in terms of individuals who might be able to help with a facilitate. There's the individual from the Center for Community Dialogue and Bryn Jones. And so I guess what I'd like to do is I do think that we need to continue this conversation until we feel like we've got a little bit more focus. And I think the equity report is going to be on our agenda for next meeting. Jay and Lori, if the two of you could reach out to those individuals and see if there's an interest there in working with us, I would really appreciate that. Mark, you're on mute.
Thanks. I think Tisha also had a suggestion about somebody, maybe while you were out of the room.
Oh, okay. Who was that, Tisha?
Yeah, and I thought not for the strategy piece necessarily, if there wants to be a structured dialogue, but for an educational piece on housing policy and equity, John Powell, small j, small p, at the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley.
Okay. Do you mind reaching out and seeing if he would be interested in either meeting with the commission as a whole or with the housing desegregation subcommittee?
Happy to.
Thank you very much.
It would not be appropriate for him to meet just with the desegregation subcommittee. I'll just say that he should definitely be meeting with the full commission. He's a national expert. So.
Okay. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
I would also say, I'm just thinking out loud here, but I just wonder if it might not be useful to sooner rather than later have a facilitator help us organize where we are now. Because I mean, one of the things I'm always struck by when we talk is like, there are a lot of things that we are thinking about and that we want to move on or want to know more about. So I'm just wondering if now we could help, if a facilitator could kind of help us organize our collective thinking. And then like Tisha was saying, maybe from there we can think about, John Powell and others to help come in and educate us. And then maybe, a few months down the road, once we get a little bit more information under our belts, we could regroup again with a facilitator. Because I do think that, we've got a lot that we have floating around, like I said, but I do think that there's a lot that we don't know. And I would also recommend Policy Link is a great resource, and they have a whole section dedicated to housing. It's called, they have a Housing Futures Month syllabus, just talking a lot about, visioning for housing, what equitable housing looks like, segregation, just a lot there. So, I do think there's a lot that we can all do to probably educate ourselves a little bit more. But anyway, maybe a visioning or some facilitation now, some information in the middle, and then facilitating again. I'm just thinking out loud based on what I heard. So,
okay. Well, let's reach out to those individuals and see if we can come back with a recommendation for the group next meeting. Any other comments on agenda item number 4, the goals and priorities? Mark, you're good? Okay. Okay, agenda item number 5 is the vice chair nomination. So as everyone knows, Michael Edmonds stepped down at the last meeting, and we need a vice chair because I can't make every meeting. So I guess I'd like to open it up for nominations, and I have a thought myself, but I'd like to just go ahead and open it up for everybody else first. Is there somebody who would like the job?
Jim, I would be happy to do it unless there's somebody else that wants to step into the role, but I'd be happy to do it if the commission would like that.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Is there anybody else that would be interested?
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, so I guess is there a motion to nominate Jay Young as the vice chair of CEHD?
I make a motion to nominate Jay Young as vice chair of the Commission on Fair and Equitable Housing.
Is there a second?
I'll
second.
second. Oh,
There's a motion made by Mindy and a second by Vicky. Is there any discussion before I put this to vote?
What was the salary going to be again? I'm sorry.
You get to help me pay for drinks.
That'll work.
Okay, Shay.
Aye.
I'm gonna go ahead and skip Jay. Mindy,
Yay.
Lori,
Aye.
and Brianna.
Aye.
Okay, Maggie Amato Tejas.
Aye.
Wendy, is Wendy here? No, Wendy's not here. Marianne's not here. Mark
Aye.
and Vicky.
hi.
All right, the ayes have it. Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate it. Okay, next agenda item. Agenda item number 6, the CEHD membership.
So I'm stepping in for Ann, Jim,
Thank you.
on this. Again, the commission talked at its last meeting about adding an ex officio seat for a public housing or a housing choice voucher representative. And so that's what's on the agenda item. Make a formal recommendation to mayor and council to make this possible. This, of course, comes on the heels of Mike having to step down. And as I told Mike earlier today, this is meant to bring someone on the commission similar to him, like him.
So from just maybe one just quick question. So from a procedural perspective,
Mhm.
if we make this recommendation to mayor and council, do they have to approve it on their agenda? So it's most likely going to be about a 2-month period before it's approved. And
The specific time, I don't know, but yes, as everyone knows, it does take a little time for items to get onto a mayor and council agenda. So it could be up to 2 months, yes.
Mindy?
Would, I totally support it. I would make a motion that I do have a question that I think I can speak for all of us when I will say that we would love for Michael to be back. Would he, my 2 questions is, would he then be a voting member? And the second question is, are we going to have to open it to the public for other individuals to take that spot?
The answer to the first question, Mindy, is that ex officio members are not voting members.
Okay.
Of course, they participate and exchange ideas. And this is not, how should I say it? This is not for Mike. Sure, Mike can apply, and so can anyone else who would fit this description. But again, it's a mayor and council appointment.
Mindy?
I'd like to make a motion to add a ex officio member slot on the commission for an individual whom is residing or participating in the continuum of city-supported housing. Or
Okay.
whatever.
So it's a motion to add an ex officio seat to the CEHD of somebody who's within public housing or is using housing choice vouchers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second, Vicky.
Thank you, Vicky. Okay, is there any other comments or discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and, oh. Tisha, I just realized I didn't call on you last time. I apologize. So I'm gonna call on you first for the vote. Tisha,
Aye.
Vicky,
Aye.
Shay,
Aye.
Mark,
Yo,
Mindy,
I
Jay,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Maggie. Is that an aye? I think it-
Yes.
Okay, Kimbriana?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Nesto. Okay, next agenda item is the subcommittee updates. First is the housing first is first. So Mindy,
There was not a quorum, which I would like to ask to be put on the agenda. I have nothing to report about it, as there was not a quorum. There was some discussion. I
Okay.
would say that I'm deeply disappointed that the Housing First subcommittee has not gained more traction. I know that Housing First will address so many of the other issues that we were tasked to look at. And I will unabashedly try to persuade other members from the commission to please consider joining the Housing First subcommittee. Thank you.
when's your next meeting?
Um,
Housing first is, looks like it's May 31st.
so, okay.
Yeah, May 31st. Okay. Tisha, would you be interested in, do you have a subcommittee that you would like to participate on? Do you have
Affordable housing or housing first?
the housing first or the housing desegregation?
Yes.
What would be your preference?
I should probably go for the affordable housing.
For the affordable housing?
Oh, wait, Mindy, do you have a preference?
Mindy is
Yes, I do.
join
Tisha,
housing.
would you consider please joining the Housing First subcommittee?
Okay, that's
you.
what I'll do.
Okay, thank you, Tisha. I appreciate that. Shay, did you have a question?
I can wait.
Okay. All right. Lori, housing site desegregation.
Jay's gonna actually do that.
Okay, Jay.
Thanks, Lori. So we met today, as I mentioned, and I went over a number of the things that we talked about, and I'm happy to see the commission already moving forward as a full body to address some of those issues. But just to recap, we do think it's really important to center the equity study, at least at this time, as kind of our weight going forward, our center of gravity going forward, to help us create that shared vision of what housing equity looks like in Tucson, and then potentially a framework to get there. The other thing that we did is we, in kind of that same spirit, we discussed what we believe our vision of desegregation in Tucson is. And there were a couple of points, and they're not, super well polished, but I think they make sense. One is identify and dismantle barriers that perpetuate segregation in Tucson. The second point was ensuring that neighborhoods that have been historically under-resourced are indeed adequately resourced. And then we talked about the third point being making sure that there is improved social mobility for all Tucsonans, meaning that folks have access to the things that they need to have access to and are free to live where they want to live in Tucson. So I think we had a very productive meeting, and I'm very grateful to the subcommittee members who have been meeting regularly and mulling over these issues. So I believe, let me just double check my notes, see if there's anything that we missed or that I missed. I think that's it. Vicky or Lori, is there anything that I missed? All right, that's it, Jim. Thanks.
Any questions for Jay or Lori? Okay. Affordable housing, Shay?
We had to cancel our meeting. We didn't have quorum. So, but I was just gonna say for a future agenda item, I was wondering if we could, I don't know, some of the things you're talking about, Jay, and other people are talking about, it's like bringing more people in and more voices and more conversations. Right now, I know there's a few grants out there. Vitalist is a great resource. Maybe their Spark grant, or they have a grant also around technical assistance, but I don't know if any of that could go towards some kind of marketing campaign to get people here. Marcos has also talked about marketing. I mean, I think with some of the agenda items we have, even long-term goals about bond financing, the need to get the word out and reach more people with some of the goals. I don't know if we can, to me, if we were going to look for funding for anything for our group specifically, that's where I would like to see some of that go. Marketing has come up a few different times in different conversations, and I think it could be great to have a base or a newsletter that goes out, or through email, some way to communicate what we're working on with a broader sense of the public.
Yeah, I think we actually need to make a report here. So that is an action item that I was going to try to get done, and I did not in this last month. So I'll work on that again. Okay, any questions for Shay? So before we move to agenda item number 8, a question, Vicky, we have an ad hoc subcommittee, and do you think next meeting you'll be ready to discuss that, or is it we're still a little ways off?
No, I think we will, Netta, we just need to schedule. Well, we can talk offline. Maybe we just need to share the things by email. I just need guidance on that, because we're compiling things that need to be shared. So I don't know if we have to have another subcommittee meeting to do that.
Okay.
Probably, or if it can be done through email. I'm not.
Okay.
But
Vicky,
to answer Jim, your question, yes, I think that we'll be ready by next time.
Okay. Well,
Vicky, there is a meeting scheduled on the calendar, I should say, for Monday the 8th at 11 o'clock.
Oh, there we go.
okay, maybe for the next meeting, we'll just add it to as a subcommittee. And you can just kind of tell us what's going on with that. Does that sound good?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, agenda item number 8 is HCD updates. Nesto.
Jim and commissioners, good afternoon. Liz and Ann could not be here this afternoon because they are very busy preparing for an important visit by some HUD officials next Tuesday. I think many of you know that HCD is a finalist for the $50 million, and I say $50 million transformation grant focusing on the Tucson house and the immediate area, but the Tucson house primarily. So some HUD officials who are involved with the Choice Neighborhood grant funds will be here for a tour of the Thrive area, and again, principally the Tucson house. We are very excited about the visit. We are one of, I think it's 6 or 8 finalists for the grant. This grant will be announced probably late July. And if the city receives this $50 million grant, this will propel us fast forward to remodel, refurbish, reconfigure the Tucson house and do much more than just remodeling Tucson house. Of course, provide newer residences, units for the Tucson house residents, and there's more and a lot more to it. So that's our big excitement going on these days. We did have some HUD officials, auditors in last week. They're a fun group, let me tell you. They just stayed in a conference room all day long for 5 days. They came out for air once in a while and lunch. But so we have been busy with we have been busy and will continue to be busy with HUD officials. And there will be on the mayor and council agenda on Tuesday a nomination for another commissioner, and that's I believe it's Kenny Wong from the University of Arizona. And that's it.
All right, well, thank you. Any questions for Nesto?
Nope.
Yeah, my company does a lot of HUD projects. I've got 3 HUD projects under construction right now. We've got a 4th HUD project that's going to be starting in probably 2 weeks. And HUD is tough. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through and things you have to do. But as long as you kind of understand the rules and they're good to work with. But it is an interesting organization, to say the least.
Oh, Jim, I did forget to mention that last week Southwest Fair Housing Council sponsored a forum, in-person forum at the YWCA here on Bonita. Vicky was present, I was present, and Fernando Moraga from HCD was present to talk about accessibility in housing, and want to thank Jay and Vicky for helping organize that.
Direct was also a co-sponsor.
Yes, Direct was. Thank you.
Very cool. Okay. Any other questions for Nesto? Okay, so we're going to wrap up a little bit early today. The next commission meeting is June 1st and then July 6th. The Affordable Housing Subcommittee is meeting on May 17th. Housing Desegregation is May 25th, and Housing First is May 31st. We've got a couple of agenda items that have been discussed for our next meeting. Does anyone else have any other agenda items they'd like to see on our next meeting?
I mean, I would like something maybe about marketing engagement on there.
Marketing engagement, okay.
Yeah.
And Shay, do you mind sending me an email, kind of what you're thinking there? Okay, thank you. Mindy?
We had two subcommittees that did not meet this month because of lack of quorum, and I like to consider the idea of discussing the subcommittees' ability to really dig into work. Perhaps we need to reconfigure. I don't have anything really solid other than what we're doing is, yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, Housing First does need a chair. In addition to more participation.
Well, we've got a couple of new commission members who are going to be joining us. Let's give if you're okay, Mindy, let's give it one more month. If we can't meet quorum again, then I agree. We need to just take a broader look at this subcommittees. So, okay. Any other final comments before we adjourn? Vicky?
I'm sorry, maybe I missed this. Did anybody ask? I was looking for the finalized bylaws. Did we ever finalize them? Because on the website, they're still in draft form.
We did. I've got those on my computer. No, so we need to get those on the website.
But Jim, I have a last email of in March where we exchanged draft bylaws. And I don't recall the commission voted on those bylaws.
No, we went through that. I remember it was a challenging discussion. So we went through that, and
But did the commission vote on them?
I thought we did. I thought we went through each section. We kind of went through and modified it, and then let me look at my email. Hang on.
We definitely did go section by section, but I don't recall if we voted. I guess we could go to the draft and then sort through minutes.
I'll look in the minutes.
I have on my computer that we adopted them on November 3rd, that they were approved.
Yes, but we also went through some revisions in March. And those revisions have not been voted on.
In March of 23.
Yeah.
No, I remember doing that 2 months ago.
Okay, I'll send you the draft.
Okay. If we did not approve those, we need to, obviously, but I have on my computer that we did go through it and we did approve them, and that's what I recall. Vicky?
Yeah, I was just looking, so the draft that I pulled up from the website is dated, it's for the meeting dated March 3rd, 2022.
March 3rd, 2022, and we approved them in November of 22.
Okay, so maybe they're just not.
I just emailed both of you what I have on my notes as the approved, oh wait. Yeah, as of November 3rd of 2022.
I'm just impressed with how organized you all are.
And that you have memories.
Well, I date every file. Every time I make a change, I put a new date on, so I know when it was done. So, Mindy, did you have something?
I just to make things clean, was going to suggest that we revote on the in question draft to solidify it as the new bylaws. It looks like people are going to do some homework.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of homework. If we've not approved them, we need to, but I'm pretty sure that we did. But we'll double check. Okay, anything else before we adjourn?
Hope your daughter's okay.
She's
Good.
physically is good, emotionally it's hard. But thank you. So, okay, everybody, have a great night. We are adjourned.